Welcome to the Venari Podcast. My name is Mark Collins. I head up the retail and consumer practice for Venari Partners. I'm joined today by Matt De Moraes. I've known Matt for many, many years, so I'm very thankful for you taking the time to join me, Matt, to have a little bit of a brief discussion about your journey.
No, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So Matt, we've known each other for what, seven years or so now, and you've gone through a couple of different transitions. You started obviously a bit slightly different to the average consultant, but what would be really useful for me and probably other people that are in similar shoes is to walk through your story. Essentially, what was it like for you, moving from industry to consultancy, and then obviously from consulting to industry?
Yeah, sure. So for those who don't know, and most won't, my journey has been a relatively convoluted but creative one. So I started in retail with Sainsbury's as a contractor. And that was by dint of the fact that I went to Hawaii for university. So you don't have UCAS points, so you kind of have to make your own way into industry. Went permanent with them after about a year, and I enjoyed another year there. And then I just decided I love this strategy thing and I want to go into consulting to accelerate my career. A lot of the people that I worked with had a really fast-paced career, and that's how they did it. So the transition to consulting was a simple choice. The retail background helped, and then I moved into delivering deal value with PwC, which is a fancy way of saying M&A consulting, and that was fantastic. So that's 5 years of operational consulting, and that built for me a strongly analytical toolkit, but it also built that kind of customer facing and intrapersonal skill set that's really important. And it also taught me the value of just owning your work and getting it through to completion, which is obviously instrumental for working in a corporate. So after about 5 years of that, I thought the best thing to do was to move on and try and transition back into industry.
One of the things that I'm obviously keen to understand is when you're in that consultancy environment, in my eyes, what you acquire over that sort of 18 to 24 months is a super analytical toolkit in terms of modeling, metrics and analysis. So did you find certain timeframes within consultancy where you were thinking, you know what, I'm learning at capacity now, I'm just getting into projects that I don't really like? Was it at that point you started thinking about transitioning out back into industry?
Yeah, so my transition was a little bit later than that. I perhaps overstayed my welcome slightly,
Sure you did.
from my point of view, and I think a lot of people do, because it's not always that easy to get out of consulting when you're in it. My challenge was that I did a lot of really analytical work. I made myself very valuable to the firm that I was working for, and I enjoyed the work. But then when I started to not enjoy it as much, it became harder and harder to interview well. So that's a really important thing to bear in mind, is to be proactive rather than reactive when you interview. But yeah, I developed the analytical toolkit and then quite quickly started to do the customer facing bit, which I enjoyed. And there was a good learning curve with that.
Yep.
But when that petered out, it became about selling. And for me, that wasn't really what I wanted to do in the future, because partner wasn't really where I pictured myself, which was what triggered the need to move.
Fine. And obviously then I stepped in and obviously helped make that first transition into PepsiCo. So, advice for consultants, when you're considering a move, what were the three areas that you'd probably advise at any level consultants to start thinking about?
So a really good first step is to just network effectively. So our relationship was a really important part of that, obviously. But sorry to say it, Mark, you weren't the only person I was networking with. There were a couple of others. Only a couple.
There was.
But you've got to have a good network, and recruitment is a really effective industry for that. If you find some people that you can trust with good leads that don't shoehorn you, so it's essential to have that from my point of view. I think the other things that I did was, when I went into interviews, I was selective. I was very careful. You'll probably remember that. Pick the right businesses, pick a brand that really resonates with you, and when you go in, be enthusiastic about that brand and don't be shy. It doesn't matter how senior you are, that is valued. And then just make sure that the cultural fit is suited to you. So when I moved back into industry with Pepsi, I was looking for a slowdown. I didn't mind not having the nights out with the teams and things like that. So, a family-based culture, which is what Pepsi has a lot of, was actually a really good fit for me. So those things for me are the most important.
That makes total sense. And when you made the shifts, you probably remember this, but it's not just about making that initial move. It's about looking into the business and thinking, right, okay, are there similar profiles that have transitioned into roles every 18 months, that 2-year itch, as I call it? So did you have that clear vision when you were leaving, Sainsbury's to go into PwC, and then going from PwC into PepsiCo? did you have that clear vision of I'm going into X, but it's going to take me to Y?
Yeah, so coming out of consulting with a very general skill set, I always had my eye on being a CEO or a GM. That's the path I've kind of set myself to have maximum impact on people and the planet in that kind of a role. So with that in mind, I had that generalist skill set. I moved into industry and I looked for roles that would use that generalist skill set and boost it. And there aren't that many places in a business that you can do that and work cross-functionally. Strategy is an amazing place to do that,
Yeah.
so long as you get the right mandate. And so when we worked together, and I was very clear, it needs to be a role that has a lot of impact.
Yep.
And it did, and that was great. But the next move was even more important. And so I went from sales strategy to doing broader UK strategy and working with the C-suite, which worked perfectly for developing the skill set I need to then move into my next position, which by the time this comes out, I'll be working for Compass Box as operations director, which is kind of a culmination of all the different roles we've worked together on.
Fantastic. So it sounds to me like what you've acquired over your time frame is strategic, commercial, and now operational, and we've always used that framework, sort of gearing up, ready to own a P&L and ultimately be a business leader. So I'm looking forward to seeing your journey. But to wrap it up and sum up, 3 key factors for these guys, whether it be an AC or whether it be an EM looking to make the first or second move.
In this market, I mean, we're in a very different market right now. It's a good market for people trying to move, which is great. I would say just value your network, work with good people, and recruitment is just a number one step. Career path, plan what you want to do and where you want to go as much as you can. That can change yearly if it needs to. Be flexible, and just kind of make the move, but do it selectively. I think those are the things that I would focus on.
Awesome. Well, listen, Matt, I really, really appreciate your time and effort. And like I said earlier, look forward to seeing the journey ahead, and hopefully I'll be a part of that as well.
Yeah, well, there's whiskey for you if you want it.
Excellent. Good stuff. Well, listen, you take care and we'll speak soon.